Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. 7:42 a.m., the white rabbit was already in her pocket when she zipped up her blazer. She hadn't touched it in months, but today wasn't a regular flight. Amelia Burke closed her locker, checked her reflection once, and walked toward gate C12 without saying goodbye to anyone. After 8 years flying cross-country, she didn't want to send off. She wanted the silence. Outside, Seattle rain tapped on the glass walls of the terminal, gentle and steady. Inside, she moved with calm precision, clipboard in hand, heels soft against the tile. To the rest of the crew, she looked exactly like she always did, sharp, composed, ready to manage another 3-hour flight. No one knew this was her last flight 137 to Dallas, one final boarding. She hadn't told the airline. She hadn't told her closest friend on the crew. The resignation letter sat in her glove box, signed but unsent. After today, she was done. Not because of burnout, not because of ambition. She was done because she couldn't keep pretending the skies made her feel alive anymore. Her younger brother, Leo, had been 16 when he died. The official report said non-responsive, an accidental overdose. The truth was harder. He'd spent a full day in his locked bedroom ignoring every knock. Amelia had been 900 meters away, flying a Reedy to Tampa. She hadn't called. She hadn't checked in. By the time she landed, it was too late. Since then, the uniform had felt heavier, the aisle longer, the job hollow. This flight, this one, she would finish on time. Smile when required, keep things moving, then disappear. Boarding began on schedule. Family suits. The young couple, holding hands in row 12. Amelia welcomed each passenger with the same professional tone she perfected over the years until she saw them. Father and daughter. The man stepped in first. Tall, gray, overcoat face, unreadable. No security entourage, no assistant, just him. Behind him, a little girl followed in silence, holding a small travel pillow in both hands. She wore oversized noise-canceling headphones and a navy scarf that looked too heavy for the weather. Didn't look at anyone, didn't speak, just walked. In step with him, the captain leaned close. Callum Hayes, founder of Hayes Med, that's his daughter. Amelia nodded once. She'd heard the name. Everyone had the man who built hospitals faster than states could approve zoning. Brilliant private, widowed. I'll handle them, she said quietly. At seat 2A, Callum glanced at her. She doesn't like new people, he said, voice low. Amelia nodded again. You'll have space. Let me know if she needs anything. The girl climbed in too. The seat without help. She didn't speak, didn't look up, didn't fidget, just curled into the pillow and folded her arms tight. They didn't ask for water or blankets or anything. An hour into the flight, turbulence started. Light bumps at first, then stronger jolts, just enough to rattle drink carts and trigger the seatbelt chime. Most passengers barely noticed. Amelia, in mid-cabin, glanced forward and stopped. The girl. In 2A, Evelyn was rocking slightly. First it looked like a nervous tic, but then her shoulders hunched. Her hands pressed against her ears, gripping the sides of the headphones. Her forehead leaned against the window, breath shallow. She wasn't crying, but something inside her was unraveling. Callum reached over, spoke softly, tried to place a hand on her back. Evelyn pushed it away, eyes squeezed shut. He looked up at Amelia, his expression flat a moment ago, now cracked at the edges. He was trying, but he had no idea what to do. Neither did she. Then her hand moved to her pocket. The rabbit, it was old. Stitching on the left ear had come undone 2 years ago, and she never fixed it. The eyes didn't match, but Leo had held onto it through every visit, every dark day. It had stayed in her uniform since the funeral. Never touched, never seen until now. She didn't speak, just walked forward, knelt gently beside Evelyn's seat. No questions, no explanations. She took the rabbit out and placed it in the girl's lap. Evelyn froze, her hands still trembling, slowly uncurled. She looked at the rabbit, really looked, then reached out and touched its ear. Seconds passed. Then her shoulders softened, her breath slowed, and for the first time on that flight, she smiled. A small, unsure smile, but real. Callum stared at her daughter, like he hadn't seen her in years. Amelia stayed beside them for another moment, then stood, adjusted her blazer, and walked away. Not a word exchanged. Not yet. But in 2A, a little girl clutched a broken rabbit with both arms, and a father sat completely still, watching a stranger walk away. Someone who, in 10 seconds, had reached his daughter in a way no one else had in years. The rain hadn't stopped. Outside her apartment window, the gray sky bled into the rooftops, soft and low. Amelia stood barefoot in her kitchen, wrapping leftover toast in a napkin she had no plans to eat. A small suitcase sat by the door, unopened since last night. Her resignation letter still rested on the coffee table, signed, dated, ready. Then the doorbell rang. She paused, toast still in hand. 2 knocks, firm, then silence. She opened the door, and there he was. Callum Hayes. Same coat, same gaze, calm, unreadable. But this time, something beneath the surface was different, less guarded, more unfinished. Behind him, a black SUV idled at the curb. Inside, Amelia could make out a small figure watching through the tinted rear window, still waiting. "Good morning," Callum said simply. Amelia didn't answer. He looked around briefly as if to orient himself, then met her eyes again. "I'm sorry for the intrusion," he continued. "I won't take more than a minute." Amelia stepped back slowly, unsure if it was habit or something else, and he followed, stopping just shy of the doorframe. "She said something this morning," he said. That got her attention. "Evelyn doesn't speak," Amelia said, voice quiet but certain. "Exactly." His tone didn't rise. "But this morning, she looked at me and asked, 'Where's the rabbit?'" The words landed like a slow breath. "I haven't heard her speak since my wife died," he added, softer now. "Not even once." Amelia blinked. "She didn't speak, didn't move." "I don't know what happened on that flight," he continued, "but it mattered to her enough that she's trying again." He reached into his coat pocket and unfolded a small, creased envelope. "We're leaving for Colorado in 2 hours. There's a center I've been quietly funding outside Boulder. I've taken Evelyn there before. She doesn't respond to anyone." Amelia's eyebrows tightened. "I'm not asking for therapy or training or commitment," Callum said. "I just need you to come for 10 days. Be present. Sit with her. Let her believe that what happened wasn't a fluke." Amelia's voice finally returned. "Not trained for this," she said. "I'm not even sure I should have been flying this long. She doesn't need a therapist," he replied. "She needs something real, and for some reason, she picked you." Amelia hesitated, her fingers curled slightly at her sides. "You got my address from the airline? I own 1/3 of the healthcare fund they partner with, so I asked someone I trust, that's all." Silence stretched. "I'm sorry," he added. "I know this is strange, but I don't want her to lose this." He turned to go, and that's when Amelia saw the back door of the SUV open. Evelyn stepped out. Same scarf, same headphones, except this time, no pillow, no fear. She held the rabbit, but it wasn't just in her arms. It had been patched. The left ear, once dangling by a thread, had been stitched. Messy, uneven, but lovingly done with blue thread that didn't match. Her small fingers gripped it tightly as she walked up the path. She didn't speak. She didn't flinch. She simply walked to Amelia, placed the rabbit in her hand, and with childlike instinct, gently touched her own chest. Then Amelia's, a gesture, quiet but unmistakable. She wanted to come with her. Amelia's eyes burned. "She stitched it last night," Callum said behind her. "She wouldn't go to bed until it was fixed." Amelia knelt eye to eye with the little girl. Evelyn looked at her, really looked, and in her silence, there was trust. "I don't have a suitcase packed," Amelia whispered, her voice unsteady. Callum's voice came gently from the side. "We'll stop somewhere on the way." Evelyn reached up and took Amelia's hand, not tightly, but with quiet insistence. And just like that, Amelia exhaled. The door clicked shut behind her. The suitcase by the wall would stay behind, so would the resignation letter. She followed them to the car. Not because she was ready, but because someone needed her to stay. Just a little longer. A private therapeutic center in the foothills of Colorado. Snow blankets the campus. The wind sings through the evergreens, but inside it's hushed like the children who live there. The SUV pulled past a split-rail fence and wound through pines dusted in white. Amelia sat in the back beside Evelyn, their shoulders just barely touching, the velvet rabbit folded between them like a fragile truce. The building was quiet, not sterile, just aware. Like the walls had learned not to speak unless spoken to. Inside, the director greeted them with practiced calm. Amelia signed a temporary guest badge. No roles, no labels, just visitor. Evelyn didn't flinch, didn't hide. She simply walked in, bunny in hand, and took off her shoes before stepping onto the wood floor, as if she remembered this place. Their room overlooked the trees, 2 single beds, a small table, a pile of storybooks already placed on the dresser. Amelia stood by the window while Callum unpacked Evelyn's belongings in silence. He handled the child's things with a kind of methodical grace, not affection exactly, but reverence. A father who'd memorized every detail because it was all he had left? She hasn't responded to any of the specialists here, he said finally, still looking into the drawer. She retreats, doesn't engage. No triggers, no meltdowns, just nothing. Amelia didn't turn. Maybe she doesn't want to be studied. Callum closed the drawer. He didn't argue. Later that day, the staff led Evelyn to her routine playroom session. Amelia wandered through the facility alone. It wasn't a hospital. It didn't smell like bleach or hum with fluorescent lights. The colors were soft, the spaces wide. Everything invited quiet, not forced silence, but chosen stillness. Children moved like shadows, some humming to themselves, others locked in patterns of repetition. But no one screamed, no one stared. That evening, Amelia didn't try to talk. She didn't ask Evelyn questions. She just sat by the girl's bed, folding napkins into animals. Rabbits, foxes, owls, motions were slow, intentional. On the third night, Evelyn stood beside the table and began lining them up in a row. She didn't speak, but she reorganized them again and again, sorting by ear length, then by color, then by how well they stood upright. Amelia watched with a small smile. No praise, no correction, just presence, every afternoon. While the other children joined structured activities, Evelyn chose to sit by the library window. Amelia read aloud, not loudly, not theatrically, just steadily. Some books were picture-heavy, others had no pictures at all. Evelyn never responded, never looked up, but she stayed, and that was enough. It was on the 5th morning that something changed. Amelia woke early. The snow had thickened in the night, muting the world. She brewed coffee from the small machine near the common area and carried 2 mugs to their shared room. The window was fogged over with condensation, and on the glass drawn in a child's fingertip was a figure. It was simple. Rough lines, no face, but unmistakable. A woman with long hair. Next to her, a small rabbit, and next to that, a girl. 3 shapes, holding hands. Amelia stared. Her heart climbed into her throat. She turned and found Evelyn sitting, cross-legged on the bed, watching, not smiling, not blinking, just present. Their eyes met, and Evelyn, in the quietest whisper Amelia had ever heard, said, "Is my mom coming back?" The question broke something. Amelia knelt. Her hand reached instinctively for Evelyn's, but stopped short. "No," she said, voice steady, but soft. "She's not." Evelyn didn't cry, but she nodded once, as if she already knew, but needed someone to say it out loud. Then she slid off the bed and placed the velvet rabbit into Amelia's hands and whispered again, "Can you stay until—" "She does." Amelia closed her eyes just for a moment, then nodded. Yes. The hallway light cast long shadows under the door as Amelia sat quietly in the corner, the velvet rabbit resting in her lap. Evelyn was asleep, curled into herself, fists tucked under. Her cheeks, the edge of the blanket cradled beneath her chin, but Amelia hadn't moved, not since the question. since Evelyn asked about a mother who would never return. Amelia waited until morning before knocking gently on Callum's office door. He didn't look up when she entered. He stood by the bookshelves, a hand resting on the spine of an unopened volume. Snow dusted the windows behind him, turning the world outside into a watercolor of silence. She asked if her mom was coming back, Amelia said. He didn't answer. Not at first, just exhaled slow and heavy, then turned slightly toward her, eyes unreadable. I told her no, she added. I hope that was okay. His voice was calm. It was the truth. A long pause stretched between them. Amelia stepped further into the room, lowering herself into the chair by the fireplace. She must have known something. She said, most kids, they don't stop speaking overnight unless something breaks. Callum lowered his gaze. It didn't break all at once. It cracked slowly. He sat down across from her, fingertips steepled beneath his chin. Allie, my wife wasn't away on business like I told people. She overdosed. Sleeping pills. Left a note, but Evelyn couldn't read it. She only heard the silence afterward. Amelia looked at him, not with judgment, but with recognition. Callum didn't cry, but something in his voice hollowed. I run 36 hospitals. I funded research in neuroscience, trauma, early intervention therapy. But when allies started unraveling, I missed it or ignored it. I thought I was giving her space. I was just absent. His hand opened flat against his knee. I thought Evelyn was too young to remember the sound of grief, but kids remember everything, especially silence. Amelia swallowed. She doesn't hate you, Callum. She should. She said gently but firmly. You just remind her of what she lost. Outside, a child's laughter echoed faintly in the courtyard. Sound not belonging to Evelyn. It sliced the stillness like sunlight through blinds. Callum looked up. Why are you really here? Amelia blinked. Because Evelyn asked. That's not what I meant. He stood, walked to the window. You lost someone? 2, he said. That rabbit? It belonged to someone. Amelia's jaw tightened. Lo, your son, my brother, she corrected. 16, I thought he was sleeping in. He was quiet that weekend, but I didn't think it was strange. He'd had worse days. I brought him pizza, slid it under his door. Callum turned. Eyes narrowed in thought. I found the box 2 days later, Amelia continued, voice flat, untouched. Still warm when I first left it, cold when I opened the door. He never touched it or the blanket or his pills. She looked up. By the time I got in, he was already gray. Callum sat back down slowly. Their pain folded over each other like shadows. Different stories, same aftermath. You carry it like a duty, he said quietly. I carry it because I didn't. Make it in time. Neither spoke for a while. Amelia reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small paper envelope. Inside were folded animal shapes, foxes, rabbits, birds, handmade, creased, and softened by touch. She started collecting them, Evelyn, Amelia said. Each night she lines them up on the windowsill like she's trying to build something out of. Nothing she is, Callum replied. Then after a moment he added, so are we. He stood again, slower this time, looked toward the hallway. You're not just helping her, he said. You're helping me remember how to try. Amelia rose too, but said nothing. She placed the envelope on the side table and turned toward the door. Before leaving, she paused. For what it's worth, she said without turning around, you're not the only one who missed the signs. Then she stepped out, closing the door softly behind her. In the silence that followed, Callum sat with the envelope in hand, unfolding one of the rabbits with gentle fingers until the paper lay flat, exposing the faint imprint of a child's drawing on the reverse side, a stick figure with long hair, a smaller girl, and in between them a boy with folded wings. A family that never was, a family still trying. The storm came without warning. Sometime after midnight, the wind changed pitch, an eerie whistling thrum that threaded through the eaves of the center like a warning. Amelia opened her eyes to complete silence. Then a flicker. The lights blinked once, then darkness. She sat up. Her room, usually warm with the soft hum of the heater, was still. Cold crept in through the seams of the windows. Then came the knock. Not loud, just 3 soft taps. Amelia opened the door. A nurse stood there, flashlight in hand, pale-faced. Evelyn's gone. The words hit like ice water. Gone. She was in her room an hour ago, the nurse whispered, but now the bed's empty. One of the side doors is open. We think she slipped out during the outage. Amelia didn't wait. She pulled on boots over bare legs, threw her parka over her flannel pajamas, and followed the beam of flashlights through the long hallway. Outside, the snow was blinding. The storm had worsened. Gusts of wind blew sideways, biting at every inch of exposed skin. The trees around the center swayed like restless shadows. The moon was gone. Callum was already out there, his coat flapping open, voice raw, as he called into the woods. Evelyn? No answer. The team split off in twos. They called her name over and over, but it vanished into the howl of wind. Amelia moved without thinking. Her feet slid through fresh snow, her breath coming in sharp, painful bursts.
Ow.
She scanned everything, every tree trunk, every break in the snow, until something caught her eye. A scrap of white, a paper rabbit, half. Soaked, curled at the edges, pinned to the base of a tree by ice. She picked it up, on the back, a faint crayon line in pink, a trail. Amelia followed it. One by one, more paper rabbits appeared like breadcrumbs through a forest of grief. Then she saw her curled beneath a broken pine. Evelyn sat motionless, hugging the velvet rabbit against her chest, her body trembling with cold. Amelia knelt beside her, breathless. Hey, I'm here, she whispered, wrapping the coat around them both. Evelyn didn't look up at first. Her voice came out like cracked porcelain. She said she'd come back. Amelia didn't ask who. She knew. She promised. She lied. Tears rolled down the girl's cheeks, not in sobs, but slow, quiet rivers. As if her body hadn't remembered how to cry until now. Amelia touched her cheek. Sometimes grown-ups want to keep their promises, but they're too tired, too broken. That doesn't mean you were worth coming back for. Evelyn looked up. Her lips trembled, her nose red, her hands ice-cold. Amelia held her tighter. So how about this, she said, pulling the rabbit close. Tonight, we keep the promise. Evelyn's voice was barely audible. You won't leave, no? Amelia whispered. Not tonight, not again. And then Evelyn buried her face into Amelia's shoulder. Callum arrived minutes later, his chest heaving with panic and cold, flashlights swinging wildly. When he saw them, Amelia. Cradling Evelyn in the snow, he dropped to his knees and pulled them both into his arms. Amelia didn't let go. Neither did Evelyn. Snow kept falling, but for the first time, it didn't feel like drowning. It felt like staying. The next morning, the sun rose quietly over the Colorado pines, casting long shadows on the snow-covered earth. The storm had passed, but inside the therapy center, something else was shifting, something less visible, but just as powerful. Callum stood by the common room window, his hands wrapped awkwardly around a chipped ceramic mug. The coffee had gone cold, but he didn't seem to notice. Across the room, Evelyn sat cross-legged on the carpet, tracing the seams of the velvet rabbit with her fingers. Her cheeks were still pink from the night before, but her eyes no longer wandered. They stayed fixed on Amelia. Amelia was on her knees, folding paper rabbits again. For the first time, Callum didn't just watch. He sat down beside them. Do you want to try? She asked to the square of paper she'd placed between them. He hesitated. Haven't done this since grade school. Good. That means you'll mess up the same way I do. His first attempt was crooked and crumpled. Evelyn giggled. Small sound, short but real. Callum blinked. I didn't know she could do that, he said quietly. She didn't know either, Amelia replied. That afternoon, Callum joined the children's reading circle. He didn't read. He just sat at the edge, one arm draped awkwardly over the back of a beanbag. His voice wasn't warm or performative. It was stiff, halting, but he stayed. Evelyn reached for his hand halfway through the story. He froze. Then slowly, gently, he wrapped his fingers around hers. That night in the kitchen, Amelia was putting dishes away when she heard the scrape of a chair. Callum was behind her, sleeves rolled up, holding a cutting board. She likes strawberries, he said, placing them on the counter. You cooked? I tried. The fruit was uneven. Some slices barely intact, others crushed. She won't eat them, he admitted. Does it matter? Amelia said, picking up one of the ruined pieces. She see that you tried? He paused. I thought if I just created the right system, the right environment, enough staff, maybe I could replace what she lost. You can't, he looked up. But Amelia continued, you can become something she never had. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His voice when it came was softer than she'd ever heard it. I keep thinking, what if I hadn't left that night? What if I hadn't been at the conference? I came back to a daughter who wouldn't look at me, to a silence I couldn't fix. You can't change that night, Amelia said. But you're here now. They stood in silence for a while. The hallway was quiet, just the low hum of the heater, the occasional creak of wood settling. She drew me once, Callum said, almost to himself. It was months ago, just a scribble on the wall. I didn't even know it was me until the therapist pointed it out. Amelia wiped her hands and turned to face him. She's drawing again. He nodded, then asked without looking at her. We ever wish she'd stayed in the air? I used to, she said. But flying only felt free until I realized I couldn't outrun the guilt. A long pause. Then from somewhere down the hall, Evelyn's voice called out soft, unsure. Dad. Callum turned. His face changed, not dramatically, but like something unnoted behind his eyes. He walked toward the sound. This time, he didn't hesitate. There was a stillness in the room after breakfast. Outside the window, the snow had melted into patches of wet gravel, leaving behind the scent of pine and thawed earth. The therapy center had returned to its quiet rhythm, structured, calm. But inside Amelia, something was shifting. 10 days had passed. She stood at the end of the hallway with her suitcase zipped shut. It was light. She had brought very little with her. She had planned to leave with even less. Behind her, Evelyn was sitting on the floor in the playroom, stacking blocks into uneven towers. Callum sat nearby, sketching something in a notebook. Numbers, maybe schedules, or maybe just pretending to be busy. Amelia placed the suitcase by the door, then stepped into the room. I'll be heading out this afternoon, she said. Callum looked up. I know your driver's on the way. I cannot silence. He closed the notebook, looked at her. I didn't want you to feel rushed. She gave him a small nod. Thank you. Amelia bent down beside Evelyn and smiled. I'm going back to my place now, sweetheart. The girl didn't look up, just moved a blue block across the carpet. But then, just as Amelia stood, Evelyn turned and wrapped her arms around Amelia's waist. Tight, like something she'd been holding back for days. Amelia froze. Her hand hovered above Evelyn's back. She blinked, eyes suddenly hot. Then slowly, she knelt and returned the embrace. No one spoke. Callum stood quietly at the doorframe. I can delay the flight, he said almost too softly. Amelia glanced up. It's not the flight I'm afraid of. He waited, she continued. It's staying. It's what staying could mean. Callum stepped into the room now. He crouched, met Evelyn's eyes. Can you give me an Amelia moment, love? Evelyn nodded. She didn't speak, but she went to the far corner with her blocks. Callum stood again close. To Amelia, now I can't ask you to stay, he said. You've done more than I ever expected, more than I deserved. It's not about what you ask, she replied. It's about what I can live with. He frowned. What do you mean? Amelia looked down, as if choosing between 1,000 locked doors inside her. When my brother died, she said quietly. He knocked on the door once, just once. Was in the other room, folding uniforms, setting alarms, planning a flight I didn't even want to take. Callum said nothing. He didn't need to. By the time I checked, on him, he'd collapsed. The bottle was empty. His hands were still warm. She inhaled sharply, pressed her palm to her chest. I told myself for months that I couldn't have known, that I didn't hear. But the truth is, I did. I just didn't listen. Amelia looked up now, her eyes steady. So if Evelyn's knocking now, even in her own way, I'm not walking past that door. Callum stepped closer. Are you saying she didn't let him finish? I'm not leaving. Not tonight. Not while she still needs me. There was a pause. Then, for the first time since they met, Callum smiled without hesitation. It wasn't broad or grand, but it was real. "She's not the only one who needs you," he said. A long silence followed. Outside, the wind lifted gently through the trees. Somewhere down the hallway, a child's laugh echoed faintly. "Then let's see where this goes," Amelia whispered. Callum nodded. Not as a billionaire, not as a patient's father, just as a man, finally learning how to stay. Late afternoon, sunlight stretched across the therapy room, pooling into warm amber on the wooden floor. Evelyn sat by the window, her small fingers smudged with red, blue, and yellow. In front of her, taped to the glass, was a new drawing. It was simple, childlike, but it silenced the entire room. 3 stick figures, one tall, square-shouldered, one small with messy hair and a green circle floating above, Evelyn's favorite color, and in the middle, out. A third figure with long lines. For hair holding both of their hands. Callum stopped in the doorway when he saw it. Amelia, still kneeling by the bookshelf, turned, neither said anything for a moment. Then Evelyn pointed to the drawing. "That's me," she said quietly. Her voice was clear, steady. Amelia blinked, her breath caught. Callum stepped closer, kneeling down beside his daughter. In this one, he tapped the tall figure, Dad in the one in the middle. Evelyn didn't hesitate. "Home." Amelia sat down slowly. She wasn't sure if her heart had ever broken this gently before. Callum stood up, looked at her. There was no grand speech, just a shift in his eyes, a softening, a recognition. He said, "Maybe she sees something we haven't dared to name." Amelia nodded. Her voice didn't come right away. "Then she sees what she needs." Outside the center, the snow was beginning to melt in earnest. The trees no longer looked like silhouettes. They looked alive again. The sky had lost its steel tone. Spring had found a crack. That evening, after Evelyn fell asleep with the drawing, still taped to the window, Callum brewed 2 cups of tea and met Amelia in the kitchen. She leaned against the counter, arms folded. "Should be packing." "You don't have to," he said. She studied him. "If I stay, it's not as a babysitter, I know. Not as a therapist. You were never that. You're not as someone who's just filling the space. Your wife left behind." Callum's jaw tightened.
Ow.
Then he said, "You're not filling anything. You're building something new. So are we." Silence stretched between them. Comfortable now, not heavy. He took something from his pocket, a folded note. Amelia opened it. Inside was a child's drawing. Another one. This time the 3 of them were sitting under a tree. The same tree where Evelyn had been found during the storm. "She gave me this." "This morning," Callum said. Said it was for the days ahead. Amelia touched the paper, then folded it again and tucked it into her coat. "I'll stay," she said. "But only if I'm allowed to leave one day if I need to." Callum nodded. "And if you stay longer than you thought, I won't blame you for that either." He smiled. It wasn't the end of anything. It wasn't a promise of forever. But it was a beginning with room to breathe and space for the kind of love that didn't need to be named too soon. Outside, the mountains no longer looked distant. They looked like home. It was Evelyn who found the rings. Not in a box, not hidden in a drawer, but taped beneath the kitchen counter with 2 strips of rainbow washi tape. She handed them to Amelia, like a secret she couldn't quite keep anymore. Callum walked in just as Amelia looked up. "She said you were going to forget," Evelyn said plainly. "So I helped." Amelia glanced at the rings. 1 silver, 1 gold, matched, slightly scuffed. Real. "Forget what, honey?" she asked gently. Callum sighed. His face held something softer than nerves. He stepped forward, eyes not on the rings, but on her. "I told her I was going to ask you," he said, "not with speeches, not with promises I can't keep. Just a question." Amelia didn't move. He took a breath. "Will you stay? Not because she needs a mother or because I need fixing, but because you never really left." Evelyn leaned against Amelia's leg, then looked up and added, "And because the bunny gets scared? When you go?" The laughter cracked first, then the tears came. They didn't need a ceremony. No guests, no aisle, just a shared morning in the backyard. barefoot on cold grass, while Evelyn picked dandelions and stuck them in Amelia's braid. The center kept growing. New families came. Some stayed for weeks, some for months. Amelia still refused a title, but the kids called her Miss A. Some said she had magic. She always said, no, just stories. Leo's picture stayed on her nightstand. So did a drawing Evelyn had made one spring morning. It's a house with 3 windows and a heart on the door. The stick figures never changed. One tall, one small, one always in the middle. On weekends, the 3 of them planted lavender by the fences. Callum sometimes worked late into the night designing new protocols for family-based care. Amelia would wake up reading by the fireplace, a cup of chamomile untouched in her hands. One night he looked at her and said, "I used to think I had to save everyone," she replied. "Now you build places where people can save themselves." He kissed her forehead. Not as an ending, as a beginning. Outside, Evelyn's giggle echoed from the hallway. The bunny sat on the windowsill. The mountain snow had melted for good. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this heartfelt journey. If Amelia, Evelyn, and Callum's story touched something deep within you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. More inspiring emotional stories are waiting for you every single